Imagine a new kind of investing, a potentially life-changing way to invest that honors biblical principles, the kind of principles that you and I grew up with. Since 1994, Timothy Plan has made biblically responsible investing possible, offering mutual funds and ETFs that are filtered for biblical principles. Don't compromise your values. Invest with Timothy Plan. Ask your financial advisor or call Timothy Plan at 1-800-TIM-PLAN. Again, that's 1-800-846-7526 and discover what it means to be a biblically responsible investor. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing. Mutual funds distributed by Timothy Partners Ltd. and ETFs distributed by Foreside Fund Services LLC. As a paid testimonial, there is no guarantee of future performance and each experience will differ. Welcome to another MemoPod. It is great to have you with us. And let me just start off this way. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to put it out there. I'll do the job. I will. I will do the job myself. I'll make sure that it is across party lines. I'll make sure that we have contributors from the left and from the right. I'll make sure that there's the bias that is present in everybody's opinion will be equally balanced by other people who have the same kind of bias in their opinion. The stories that we run are going to be covering the full gamut. I'll continue to put on some of your favorite voices and then include some new ones that will balance those that are currently on. I will have a full array, the full gamut of potential exciting topics. I will. Just let me do it. What am I talking about? I am appealing. I am applying. I am putting myself out there for the job as the CEO of NPR, National Public Radio. Now, personally, I believe, much like Abraham Lincoln did, that what people can do for themselves, government ought not to interfere. I do not believe that the government needs to be in any way, shape, or form involved in entertainment. I don't think it needs to be involved in the conveying of information to the masses. Okay, I think the government has its press offices, and it can put out the statements that it wants to put out. And then the media should be free and independent, and they should be able to laugh at and to point at all of the problems with the government's standard lines. I believe that's what the media exists to do. The problem is the media does a really good job of that. In fact, they make stuff up when one party is in charge. But then when the other party's in charge, they just become the propagators of that same government information. They transformed themselves into mouthpieces for the government if the ideology is similar to theirs. So the media does, I'm not even going to say that I complain too much about the way that they conduct themselves when Republicans are in office. Do I think that they go overboard? Do I think that they sometimes get caught in lies? Yes. Yes, I do. But I'll take it. I would sooner take that than have them do what they do when Democrats are in office, which is just give a pass. Don't hold them accountable. I just saw a clip of Joe Biden. What was he doing? If I had my phone. Oh, yeah, he was talking about the Israel situation. And he made the statement that I told Israel not to go into Haifa. What are you talking about, man? It's in Israel. You're talking about Rafah? In Gaza? Is that what you meant? Because I've got to see if I can find that clip. It was absolutely astounding. Well, it's not astounding. It's classic. It's classic Joe. I can't even find my Twitter. Okay, or what is it called now? X. Sorry, I can't even find my X. Just unbelievable that the guy made that statement. I'm not going to find it. But anyway, but that's what I'm saying, and nobody calls him on that. The guy wanders around the stage and imagine if that was a Republican. Do you remember when President Trump came down the ramp? It was at one of the military academies. There was like a graduation or a ceremony or something. He came down the ramp and he kind of shuffled his way down. the media went ape. They went nuts about whether or not he was really fit for office. And the way he held the cup with two hands or something like that when he took a drink. They made so much out of that. Joe Biden is and I'm not saying this is a pejorative, I'm not saying this is an attack, he is a dementia patient. But the media carries the water. So that's what I'm saying. I believe in the importance of a free press. I want a free press. I don't even mind when the free press makes stuff up and then has to can people because they got like Dan Rather making up stories to try to hurt the governing officials. I'll take that. I will take that over a doormat media that just peddles the government line, which is exactly what they do when Democrats are in charge. Now, why am I saying all this? Because what I was getting at was, I do not believe that the government has any duty, any responsibilities whatsoever when it comes to public radio, when it comes to public television. I don't think it needs to exist. What? Oh, you don't believe in Sesame Street? Yeah, I do. Do you know what would have happened if PBS would have disappeared? When I was a kid and Sesame Street was ripping, and I think Sesame Street's still going. Do you know what would happen if PBS went under or ceased to exist? What would happen? Would Sesame Street go away? Of course not. I mean, again, I don't know about today. I don't know if it's as popular today as it was. But in my day, when it was on PBS, and it was when I was a kid, you think Sesame Street was going away? No. ABC would have done anything to get that into their Saturday morning lineup. Ditto that for CBS and NBC. Cartoon Network would have gone ape to get it. I've said gone ape twice now. I need to get that under control. They would have loved it. Why? Because people want it. And so it should be on television. What about opera on TV? What about opera on TV? It's fine. If there's an opera channel that can get support and funding and enough viewers to make that work, yeah, it's great. But why am I paying for it? I don't want to watch it. The guy in the wheelchair that people say was fake and wasn't a real guy. Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking's specials on space. Spectacular graphics and all of that stuff. Put them on another channel. In fact, I think they were on another channel. They don't need to be on PBS. The government doesn't need to be subsidizing entertainment. That's not a proper role of government. It's not. Never has been. And so, yeah, no, I don't want NPR to exist, and I don't want PBS to exist, and don't misunderstand me. It's nothing against a lot of the programming. Do I think a lot of it's weird? Yeah, I do. But other people don't. And if other people want it, then they should be able to have it. And we should have a huge marketplace for various programs, like on cable television and all of that stuff. I'm all for all of these programs existing. I just don't want to pay for them with my tax dollars. Outside of filling potholes and building roads and bridges and running the post office, I don't really need the government to do, and the military, obviously, I don't need the government to do a lot of stuff. I just don't. My wife and I were just in Mississippi because I did a banquet, a pregnancy resource center banquet. I was a keynote speaker there. And so we were in Mississippi, and when we came home, because Jackson, Mississippi isn't like a huge airport hub, we had to fly to an airport hub to then get back home to Indianapolis. And the one that we ended up flying into was DC. It was Reagan International. And so as we're coming into DC, Jenny's got the window seat and she's looking out and she's pointing at stuff and says, "Oh, I think that's the Washington Monument. Yep, that's Washington Monument. I think that's the Capitol Building. I think that's White House." But one of the things that you see in this city that has all of these monuments that are bright white and all of that, you also see as you're flying in these drab, awful office buildings where all the bureaucrats work. And you realize as you're flying in, you're looking at all that stuff, 95% of that was set up to be a temporary government program. Those were agencies that were set up under the executive branch of FDR during the Great Depression. Some of it came from the Great Society of Lyndon Johnson, these huge expansions of government. Well, we're going to use these people to do this job. That's the whole point of it. Right, and then what happened? They never went away. Because government programs never go away. They keep growing and growing and growing and sustaining. And one of the reasons why, does government have any incentive to do a good job? No. It's like during the end of slavery. Okay, so you got the Civil War and the abolition of slaves with the 13th Amendment. A lot of people started to realize, yeah, man, it's great that we freed the slaves, but freedom to what? I mean, they don't have any education. They can't read and write, these former slaves, many of them, because they were not permitted to learn how to read and write. So if they don't have any education and they can't read and write, they don't have any job prospects. They don't have any place to live. They don't have any money to be able to go out and get any of that stuff. So what have we freed them to? So one of the things that the government came up with was a solution to this. It was called the Freedmen's Bureau. And the whole point of the Freedmen's Bureau was to take from the plantation class in the South, take from their wealth, and then use it to help slaves get a jump on life. Now, I'm not even saying I got a problem with that. Normally, I don't like government confiscation of property. Okay? But you're trying to get slaves up on their feet. But here's what always happens with government programs. It happened with the Freedmen's Bureau. It becomes an instrument of plunder. Why? Because if you work for the Freedmen's Bureau and you do a really good job, really good, and former slaves become self-sufficient, what are we not going to need anymore? Right, we're not going to need the Freedmen's Bureau, which means you don't have a job anymore. So you actually have an incentive to not do a good job. You have an incentive to lock people into a state of dependency that always needs the Freedmen's Bureau so that you can perpetuate your own financial existence, so you can keep a job. I mean, that's the nature of government. And that's why I have such a problem with it. I mean, April 15th just passed. And every year, and this year more than ever, because we owed money this year because of a tax error through the year, a withholding error. And so we owed money, and it made me more self-conscious and more aware than ever before of why Sam Adams and the boys got rowdy. I mean, it's outrageous to me how much government takes from us, how much it stifles ingenuity, it stifles motivation, it stifles creativity. I mean, the more industrious you are, the more productive you are, the more government takes from you. Why are we taxing people's productivity? It's punishing people for being productive. Tax their consumption. But we don't do it that way. So, why do we tax the snot out of people? So that we can finance a bunch of government programs that were supposed to be temporary, but they are still here. All those government buildings in D.C., the drab-looking buildings that all the bureaucrats go to and work in. That's why we tax people. And what I'm talking about right now. I know NPR and PBS, they don't get a huge chunk of taxpayer dollars. They get any, it's too much. It's not a role for government. It's never been a proper role of government. And it shouldn't be now. But I'm volunteering to head it up between you and me so I can run it into the ground. That's what I would do with it. No, I do a good job. But I think I would do a good job in that I would bring both sides to the forefront. I would let a conservative voice be heard on it to contradict the vast majority of the programming on NPR and PBS. And the moment both sides started being heard, then you're going to have everybody else. You're going to have all of the leftists in DC. Well, we shouldn't be financing this. We shouldn't be having something like this. Why are tax dollars going towards this? And if that's the consequence, I'd say I did a pretty good job. Yeah. So that's my plan. I'm going to be fair, and that's going to drive them nuts. But NPR has recently hired a new CEO. And that's why this is all on my mind. Because the new CEO, I've got some of these tweets in front of me. Catherine Mayer is her name. I mean, if this doesn't tell you exactly what NPR is and where it's going under her leadership, here are some of her old tweets. Let me just share some of them with you. I know that hysteric white woman voice. I was taught to do it. I've done it. It's a disturbing recognition. While I don't recall ever using it to deliberately expose another person to immediate physical harm on my own cognizance, it's not impossible. That is whiteness. Okay. How about this one? I'm white, so my hair doesn't automatically carry with it the freight of my race, worth, and everyone else's encoded assumptions and biases. Well, it does if it's like, looks like you got out of a low-flow shower. It's just kind of sitting there on your head. I mean, yeah, you're certainly going to be subjected to people's assumptions there. How about this one? Lots of jokes about leaving the U.S., and I get it. This was back during the Trump presidency. But as someone with this term, she deserves a raise just for coming up with this phrase. But as someone with cis white mobility privilege, I mean, that's a mouthful there. I mean, we just make up words, don't we? There's a line in an old Seinfeld show. I love Seinfeld. And Jerry looks at, I can't remember who he's looking at. I think he's looking at Kramer. And he said, man, you can really talk some trash. Might have been George. And that's what I'm sitting here thinking, man, you can really talk cis white mobility privilege. Sorry. So she's saying, as someone with cis white mobility privilege, I'm thinking I'm staying and investing in ridding ourselves of the specter of tyranny. Yes, because if there's one thing that I certainly wouldn't associate with progressivism today, it's tyrannical control over people's lives, their vocabulary, She is ridding us of this. All right, one more for you. This was during the Black Lives Matter riots that were torching our cities. She writes, I mean, sure, looting is counterproductive, but it's hard to be mad about protests not prioritizing the private property of a system of oppression founded on treating people's ancestors as private property. And that's the new head of NPR. Any idea what we're going to be getting from NPR? Now, here's the best part. Christopher Rufo, who has done a lot in the way of conservative causes in the culture, he is, to his massive audience, exposing the tweets, like some of those that I just read. Here is, this is a write-up. Was this the Washington Post? This might be from NPR writing about Christopher Rufo doing this. Listen, conservative activist Christopher Rufo is among those now targeting NPR's new chief executive, Catherine Mayer, for messages she posted to social media many years before joining the network. Among others, those posts include a 2020 tweet that called Trump racist and another that appeared to minimize rioting during social justice protests that year. Social justice protests. Maher took the job at NPR last month, her first at a news organization. Okay. Targeting? That's not what this is. Like, this is targeting. It's like when Republicans pounced. A Democrat or a progressive does something wrong, and they get called out publicly in conservative media. Oh, Republicans are pouncing. Republicans are seizing on this. No, they're not. That's not the story. The story is the scandal of the leftist. The story here is not that Christopher Rufo's drawing attention to the tweets. The story is the tweets. That's what you should be paying attention to. That this is a radical leftist. She's an ideologue that is in charge of a supposedly taxpayer-financed, public, nonpartisan news agency? Come on. That's the story. I mean, if Rush Limbaugh would have been made the NPR chief and Democrats got up in arms about it, would the proper response being, oh, Democrats are pouncing? No, it would have been, why is a right-wing ideologue like Rush Limbaugh now the head of NPR? And that's still the story. And this is the other thing, and this bothers me with libs of TikTok, and it should bother all of us when this is the way we view this. You are not targeting somebody to notice what it is that they're saying and to amplify what it is that they're saying. Now, if I just decided out of the blue to find somebody on the left and I start ripping into them and saying things about them and drawing conclusions about them because I want them out of a job, okay, then you could say fairly that I'm targeting somebody. But if all I do is say, by the way, did you know that President Biden said this? Did you know that President Biden said this? Look at this clip from President Biden. Look at this clip from last week with President Biden. Look at him talking about Israel and Gaza. If all I'm doing is playing his words, and I'm not manipulating them, I'm not editing them, I'm just playing his words for you. I'm showing you a video of him. I'm not targeting him. That's a completely inappropriate word to use for this. You can't be targeted by your own words. Unless I'm missing something, and maybe I am, and you can help me with that, but that's not targeting. Just like with libs of TikTok, people get mad, oh, libs of TikTok is targeting transgenders. Wait a minute. Libs of TikTok is simply posting what those transgender activists have posted themselves to TikTok, to social media. Libs of TikTok takes that and posts it themselves so that everybody can see. That's where the name came from. It's just replaying videos that liberals have posted to TikTok. That's not targeting anybody. That's just amplifying what they wanted to be out there in the first place. If you're embarrassed by who they are, and that's what I would say about this, if you're embarrassed by Kathleen, is it Kathleen? Yeah, Catherine Mayer, if you're embarrassed by her, then don't give her the job. I mean, that should be telling us something, right? That you're embarrassed about these tweets? You don't want them out there? Republicans pouncing. That's not the story. So, look, yeah, if you're embarrassed about her, left, I'll do it. I'll do the job. And I'll do great. Really will. Okay, so you let me know what you think about any of that stuff. If you're a free subscriber, this is where I've got to leave you, because on the second half of this, some of you know about this case out of Indiana, the Delphi murders, the two girls that were that were murdered in Delphi, Indiana, which actually isn't that far from where I am right now. It isn't far from our community. Our school plays Delphi. We're in the same conference as Delphi and all of those things. So certainly very close to this story where Abby Williams and Libby German were killed, 13-year-old and a 14-year-old, just out for a walk. And this guy has been arrested for the crime. And I just have this terrible feeling. I don't know this, but I have this terrible feeling that Richard Allen, the guy that they've arrested, is guilty of this crime, and he's not going to end up being found guilty. And the reason that I have this fear that this guy's going to get away with murdering these girls is because, from what I'm seeing, the state police, the investigators, screwed something up that is so simple. How do you do that? I want to get into that in the second half of the pod today, and also an unlikely hero that if you would have told me that either of these two people that have been just going bananas recently, just being spot on with their cultural commentary, if you would have ever told me, or told me 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that I would be singing the praises of one or two, both certainly, or even one of these individuals, I would have laughed in your face. And now I got to take my hat off to them. I don't think they're conservatives, but I need to applaud them. So I'll tell you who I'm talking about and why I'm talking about it, as well as getting into this Delphi stuff. Look, if you're a free subscriber, I would love for you to give us a shot, to stay on. Just upgrade from free to a paid subscription. You can do it for $10 a month and cancel anytime. You can do it for a year and save money if you do the year subscription. And you'll get the memo that's sent to you every Monday. You'll get the Bible teaching that comes out on Wednesdays. And then you can join into these conversations like we're going to get into the Delphi stuff and unlikely heroes, which is what we're going to cover after this break. Free subscribers got to leave you here unless you upgrade. Paid subscribers, I'll see you in a minute.
The Memo with Peter Heck.
Please patronize and thank all the sponsors of the Heck podcast, including McGonagall's Buick GMC, Terrell's Auto Service, Norris Insurance, Stevens Machine, Creative Financial Center, Indiana Right to Life, Tri-Green Tractor, the Indiana Family Institute, Hartman Family Farms, Liberty Financial Group, the Wyman Group, and J. Watson Creations.